The bullet hasn't been fired yet. 8 seconds to impact. A titan of healthcare strides across a windswept plaza, city sirens distant, a briefcase ticking with choices. What single decision could turn boardroom triumph into blood on stone? His name was Ryan Thornton, CEO of Helios Health, the insurer that could move markets with a memo. 1 hour later, headlines would convulse the nation. But first came a whisper, a footstep, the flicker of a streetlight surrendering to night. This is a fictional dramatization. The people, companies, and events, though familiar in shape, are imagined for storytelling. Any resemblance to real persons or entities is coincidental. The shock we examine is the story's beating heart. Thornton was the quiet kind of powerful, a spreadsheet monarch. Helios ensured 1 in 10 Americans. To some, he was a guardian against ruin. To others, a gatekeeper with keys that never turned fast enough. The first shock wasn't the gunshot. It was a message. Deny this, too. 5 words, typed by an unknown hand, arriving hours before the plaza. Addressed to a man who believed numbers could be negotiated. Just not tonight. Helios had grown like coral, layer upon layer of acquisitions, benefits carved into cost, risk distilled into premiums. Thornton surfed the tide of consolidation, promising stability in exchange for compliance with the math.
But medicine isn't only math. In kitchens and waiting rooms, human stories stacked like unpaid bills. A father staring at a denial letter. A nurse reusing hope between shifts. The ledger kept its balance. Lives not. Helios faced a storm. Investigative reporters traced patterns, algorithmic flags, appeals that died in automated loops, a profit curve rising like a pulse under sprint. Thornton called it optimization. Critics called it cruelty by code. Security tightened. Thornton's route to work shifted daily. A black sedan idled behind tinted glass. Drivers swapped without routine. The bubble held, until a calendar error and a human habit opened a seam. On that Friday, Thornton chose the plaza, an old ritual before major earnings calls. Fresh air, a breath to rehearse lines that could add or erase billions. The city was a choir of brakes and boots. Someone else was counting seconds. The shot cracked like ice in a glass. Thornton fell, briefcase bursting, papers like startled doves. Chaos rippled. A scream bent the air. In 8 seconds, the invisible architecture of a corporation shook like a ridge in wind. Police cordoned the plaza in blue tape. Media anchors arrived like miners to a cave-in, testing air with questions. A red scarf on the ground became a symbol. Every network looped it slow, a nation's gaze snagging on color.
Detective Mara Sanchez caught the call before coffee, a career of puzzles, budget cuts, and velvet-gloved lobbyists. Now, a CEO on the pavement. High stakes, low illusions. She walked the grid of chalk and silence. A retired nurse named Althea Price had posted a blistering video days earlier. Tears, receipts, names redacted. "We don't deny care," she said. "We deny time." Hate mail surged. Most words vanish. Some grow teeth. But Althea had an alibi, live streaming at a rally 5 states away. The narrative pivoted. What if the shot was profit, not rage? Short sellers had circled Helios, betting on a fall. A CEO's death could tilt numbers like dominoes. Sanchez mapped motives: patients, investors, competitors, insiders, ideologues. Each had a door marked grievance. She needed the hallway that connected them. Footage showed a hooded figure trailing Thornton days prior. Never close, always aware. Inside Helios, PR drafted language with surgical caution. Tragic loss, committed to access, cooperating fully. In the glass rooms above the shock, lawyers and risk officers calibrated empathy like dosage.
An anonymous tip cracked the calm. Look at Project Latchkey, a skunkworks pilot in claims triage. Quiet, proprietary, immensely efficient. Efficiency, Sanchez knew, is a mirror word. It shows what you ask it to show. Latchkey's directive was simple: minimize avoidable payouts. The algorithm learned with appetite. Appeals found new ruts, exceptions narrowed like pupils. Thornton had signed off on expansion. Was the signature the spark or the shield?
Profiles emerged. A biotech rival quietly bled by Helios's bargaining clout. A boutique hedge fund, long on grievance, short on Helios. And a security contractor whose renewal hinged on proving a point about risk. Thornton's widow spoke quietly. He thought numbers were rails. Keep the train steady. Grief and guardedness intertwined. Outside their home, cameras blinked like distant stars, waiting for a quote that could carry a week. Helios stock ricocheted. Overnight, analysts performed autopsies on sentiment. Was the company the victim, or the system's executor finally facing its own verdict? Markets don't grieve, they price. Sanchez found the plaza's weakest seam, a blind zone where two cameras' overlap failed by inches. The shooter had traced that negative space like a cartographer of absence. Someone had studied the map. The private security contractor, Arclight Global, had audited that very gap 3 months earlier, then recommended a costly fix. Helios declined. Acceptable risk. The phrase clanged now, like a bell you wish you'd never forged. Arclight's regional manager, Cole Vance, knew the plaza. Knew shifts, badge rhythms, coffee breaks. He also owned puts on Helios, insurance against bad days. Sanchez tasted iron in the air, motive with a market instrument. But Vance had an alibi, too clean by half. Time-stamped photos at a charity gala, metadata intact. A decoy with perfect seams. Someone else wore the mask. Someone else pulled the thread. An intern whispered to Sanchez in a coffee line. Latchkey didn't just triage claims, it scored volatility. The algorithm could predict when news would magnify loss. Risk wasn't neutral, it was navigable, sometimes steerable. If Latchkey could see the storm coming, who else could? Insurance is a web. Brokers, reinsurers, data vendors. One misrouted report, one disgruntled architect could seed a plan that looked like fate. Sanchez drove to a suburb where tech talent lived, behind good schools and new siding. She found the coder, Avi Kulkarni, on unpaid leave, eyes sunken, conscience louder than counsel. "I built a scalpel," he said. They needed a sickle. Anonymized dashboards shared with a vendor for testing. Screenshots slipped into encrypted chats. A private Telegram group named, with cruel wit, Act of God. The Stormfront now had coordinates. A trader at Hallowell Capital, a biotech VP iced out by Helios, and an Arclight subcontractor who moonlit as a fixer. 3 strangers rehearsing a catastrophe like a heist. Sanchez traced a rented studio facing the plaza. Inside, acoustic panels, a tripod, a case for a compact carbine disguised as a cello. The assassin wasn't a drifter. They were production-level persons. Ballistics matched a custom barrel with a 3D printed baffle. Less spark, cleaner blur. The internet had turned gunsmithing into recipe cards. Precision was for sale. Accountability was not.
Threads converged in an airport lounge. The fixer met the trader. A message arrived. Plaza confirmed. A plane banked east. Money moves like weather. Pressure finding absence. Storms birthing in clear skies. With subpoenas, the chats became sound. A timeline sharpened. Scouting, rehearsal, market positions staked, an algorithm's blind spot exploited. A man's ritual walk weaponized. The plan sang in 4 bars. See, shape, strike, spin. Warrants rolled. The trader bolted, leaving a desk still warm, a half-eaten orange, positions bleeding red. In the panic, he called the fixer from a bathroom stall. The call pinged 3 towers.
enough for a net. Arclight's subcontractor, the Fixer, had a name now. Petra Lowe, ex-military, logistics savant, believer in controllable chaos. Her storage unit held a different gospel. Burner phones and foam, a map with times inked like veins. Sanchez needed the conductor. The biotech VP, Sloan Mercer, denied it all, loyal to the islands. But their email drafts, never sent, betrayed a choreography of resentment, set to a metronome of quarterly losses. A Helios whistleblower forwarded a security log showing Petra's team flagged the camera blind zone, and that Mercer's firm had lobbied to stall capital upgrades citywide. Complicity through policy, a velvet knife. The case tightened like a noose. Petra in custody, the traitor cornered, Mercer's counsel blinking. But the assassin's face remained fog. For all the planning, the trigger belonged to a ghost who moved with orchestral timing.
Avi's memory held the key. Weeks before, Petra quizzed him about the plaza acoustics, feigning interest in urban sound studies. She'd recorded test pops with a nail gun at dawn, charting echo and camera sway. The assassin was neither ideologue nor rival exec. She was a contractor's contractor, Rhea Dalton, paid to be a metronome. Her trail? Silent apartment, paid in crypto, practice footage of moving targets in a junkyard at noon. Dalton slipped toward an exit we rarely check, rail instead of road. But risk loves patterns. She kept one. Postcards from rail towns, stamped, then tossed. Surveillance pounced on habit disguised as whim. The takedown came under concrete, the low hum of fluorescence, the squeal of wet tires. Dalton approached a locker, head low, hand steady. "Police!" The echo cracked. Her eyes mapped exits. None were kind. In lockup, Dalton spoke in chords, not melody. Jobs have start points and end points. No confession, only edges. Yet her devices sang. A calendar blocked in 8-second segments. Plaza photos stored as negative space maps. Mercer flipped next, trading silence for survival. The plan, she admitted, wasn't to kill policy, only to nudge panic. But death is a blunt instrument, panic a blade. Somewhere, intent dissolved into impact. Court swelled like theater. The traitor wept into a pressed handkerchief. Petra sized the ceiling tiles. Dalton refused spectacle. The public watched justice perform itself, asking if systems learn or merely loop. Helios survived, bruised and rebranded. Latchkey was shelved with ceremonial vows. A new CEO toured clinics with cameras, promising compassion at scale, the industry's favorite oxymoron. Markets nodded. Grief did not. Sanchez returned to the plaza one dawn, boots clipping in the cold. The red scarf was long gone. The wind kept its appointment. Cities metabolize shock, but some echoes keep their claim on mornings. What endures? A lesson written in frost. When care becomes calculus, someone will try to game the clock. And when power lives in a blind zone, a single breath can redraw the map. The 8 seconds still count. What do we do with them?